initially, when I was asked to talk about this, I knew that I'd be following a lot of radio experts. Everyone's going to talk about the spectrum and frequency. But there's a fundamental question folks been asking is, why would I deploy 5G, especially in a company like Intel, whose heritage it builds in the cloud? So when I looked at the revenue projection, when I looked at everything that we've done, you clearly see the gravity is with the cloud service providers. Right? There's no question. They had the DevOps, they had the application developers. So the question that the gentleman asked is that what can 5G do for me, for people that their livelihood, generally people don't care about technology. What does 5G do? I've recently been talking with a lot of enterprise conferences, and you have to explain to them 5G is 4G plus one more. And they get that, they heard a lot of the buzz. I actually have, my daughter was undergoing a surgery, removing wisdom tooth. And before then, he asked me, when can I upgrade my iPhone to 5G? I was like, okay, let's just go on and remove a wisdom tooth. But really, the point really is, when you're going to do 5G, what is the purpose of it? What is really getting you the ROI? We've been seeing a lot of things about it's going to be cloud ready and getting to the point of cloud native. So you are now in an even playing field with the folks that's been making the bundles of the money off the network today. So the theme is end-to-end 5G, virtual, software-defined, and cloud-ready. And now make the case of why that is beneficial to all the ecosystem. So we started the network transformation journey quite a few years ago. Actually started in China with China Mobile. Thank you, Dr. E. And that was a picture in the background where we signed this Cloud Rent MOU. And we have all the ecosystem with us. And since then, we've done NFV, the white paper from SC, and we've done a MEC with SC, again, co-founder with China Mobile. Thank you again. And since then, we've seen these momentums to take network virtualize, not because folks wanted to create jobs for themselves. It's really because that network today started to justifying 5G. And it is because you start having a server running natively in your network, which makes it important and makes it beneficial to start deploying application services. So we start seeing, we've been working with Verizon and Nokia to collaborate on a virtualized RAN architecture. We've been seeing Cisco jumping into the fray. So with all that in mind, what have we been doing? What does network then becomes? Network really start becoming a distribution of data center. You're going to hear me say that a lot because my division is actually the part of the data center group. So when we looked at everything, it's really looking at a latency driven. The cloud in the past, today runs around latency 100 millisecond plus, right? Now you start talking about services. Somebody said, is 5G going to be fast enough to save lives? Oh my gosh, you're not going to be running on 100 milliseconds. You start moving them towards the edge. So you start measuring the traditional the network, start looking at from the OTT side to the core, to regional CO, or sometimes called next-gen NGCO, the next-gen CO, local CO, base station, and 5G clients. We actually have seen RFPs coming out that we've been answering, started measuring the entire network in terms of latency. And that is a tremendous difference than the way that we used to talk about in the 3GPP protocol. I think someone asked that, I think Ron said that, where is the edge? The question really depends on, the answer depends on who asked the question. The ones from the cloud side, the edge is very different from the ones that deploying in a base station. But generally, we've seen that the edge roughly around either is a colo center, so you're seeing a lot of investment going into people building edge data center. Not data center, but edge data center. There are several companies, if you Google them, you'll see them coming up. Why are these companies even exist today? Why are they taking investment, tremendous amount of investment? Building data center is an expensive business. That's because there are demands, there are people investing money to have them doing that. Number two is start doing network, in the network level, some kind of intermediate data hub with or NGCO. Lots of activities in that. We actually just announced a Mobile Congress. I was in a press conference with China Unicom, and deploying edge data center this year in China. So clearly, there is a demand. People don't spend that kind of money if there's not a business plan behind it. And then last but not least, that's my favorite one, is edge compute, literally at the nodes, either at or near the base station within a very little millisecond delay. And those use cases are very specific, either around CDN, some kind of video, especially in countries like India where there's a tremendous amount of video being downloaded because there's a particular operator running a very disruptive business model. We're seeing a high demand for that. We're seeing a lot of the cloud service providers actually jumping in the fray, funding some of these activities, right? This is a tradition that people call MAC. We're seeing that on-prem, we're seeing that in factories, we're seeing that in shops. We are involved in a lot of these parts through our customers, and we'll go through some of that discussion later on. But this picture is important because it actually evolves. By the way, when I started this picture, it was a very complex picture, and we gradually start shrinking it and shrinking it. Now the wireline absolutely start getting into it. A lot of cable companies very interested in discussing this. All of a sudden, my team's traveling to Denver. Like, wow. So when you look at this kind of picture, what that tells you is that where is the edge? The edge is where you actually want to deploy compute in addition to your connectivity, and where there's actually people willing to pay for that. You know, the question about B2B, B2C to B2B, the answer is, who is the decision maker in this? So the question that we must ask ourselves is that, who are the decision makers and what are the buying criteria? So let's go. I'll have one page at the end, and hopefully you guys have good enough eyes to read it, because I certainly can't read it when I was writing this. What is edge computing? Now, when we first started this, it's always about latency. Latency and backhaul. Not every data needs to go back to the cloud, even though I am from the data center group, but still, not every data needs to go back to the cloud. There are data that needs to be analyzed on the edge. AI, anybody? Machine learning, recommendation, do it at the edge, instantaneously, real time. But gradually, you start seeing the data sovereignty issue really comes in. When you go talk to the enterprise and the factories, many of them, certain amount that they want to keep to themselves. They don't necessarily want to land that on the operator side. Security becomes a huge issue. So really, these become the factor that builds into the TCO model. Then the other part of TCO model is that if you want to ask people to deploy yet another box, that's another level of discussion you need to have. If you're saying that I'm going to give you a common platform that runs the network as well as edge compute, the equation becomes slightly different, easier. Not easy, just easier to answer. So if you keep that in mind, this is our decision criteria that we've been learning. We didn't make this up. Like I said, we started with backhaul. That was a very simple. When Mac, if you remember the first XMAC white paper that I actually participated in writing, the only thing we said was, oh, saving the backhaul, for sure saving the backhaul. And then everything else started coming in. Everything, and AI really becomes in play. Now, AI on the edge is probably the biggest thing that we've been hearing. So what do we do? So we within Intel, obviously, this is a server company. We start building a server that we start putting a stack, a switch BP stack on it. We start running LTE. We now have 5G NR. And at the same time, it's virtualized. So VM today will be going to container Kubernetes sometime this year. Hopefully, it should be within a couple of months. And then we'll put orchestration around it. Once you do this, naturally, people started writing applications on it. One really interesting example is we did this with a retail operation. When we initially sat down and brainstorming with the customer, we came up with 5 applications. We're like, wonderful, 5. Let's go deploy it. And then I think it was about 3 months later, I went to visit the store and talked to the store manager. She said, oh yeah, there's something sitting in the closet. So what do you run on it? And I looked at the list, 26. We never thought about it. We never planned for it. Thank goodness that, because the virtual machine, they just start popping in new VM. They start moving things from the cloud down into. This is a real learning for us, is that the killer app doesn't come from us sitting in the office to brainstorm. Especially it doesn't come from a bunch of telco guys to brainstorm. It's really, once you're giving them, enable them, they started coming in, they know their app, they know their killer app. We are never going to know what hospital killer app is or retail killer app. It's giving them, enable them, giving them the variety. So what we did is we gave them an SDK. We call them Network Edge Virtualization SDK. We also gave them a recipe called Best Known Configurations, horizontalize a platform, set up an ecosystem, an ODM OEMs in Asia, in US, enable them, and the API better be common, and need to be cloud agnostics. Because they will be working with different cloud providers today. You're not going to ask them to rewrite this if they run on AWS. Also, you got to, oh, Azure is different. Give them, make it cloud agnostic but network aware. Expose the underlying radio characteristics upwards if you can. So the API allows that, but you really, the SDK need to hide the telco ugliness from the app developers because they are not going to deal with that. Most of them do not have an engineering PhD degree. So these are the ones that we're involved in. So a lot of this through our ecosystem. So Intel has a network builder, but we recently launched something called Network Edge Builder because we definitely saw a different breeds of enterprise that are coming in. So some of the ones I will highlight, Smart City Connected. This one we actually demonstrated in Mobile Congress with City Beacon American Tower. Build a kiosk that they already have in cities, it being deployed. Then we put it in a network slicing, a 5G NR, network in a box, and in the kiosk, develop a network slice. There was a slice running V2X. There were pollution with Bosch, with GE Lightning, and video, of course. With this, you now have a capabilities of running a smart city, but connected and allowing neutral hosts come in, operator come in into the play. This is also public. We did this in Winter Olympics with Alibaba. It was a city bring project that they always have in China. They have a facial recognition software, video analytics, and surveillance. This is for public safety reasons. They used to run it in the Alibaba cloud. We brought them onto the edge cloud, running on-prem, and then they will start doing predictions of where the crowd will be, 30 minutes, an hour, and 2 hours. This is great for any kind of traffic density area, things like Olympics, large gatherings, traffic control, security. Anybody? There's a really interesting and a lot of treasures in a large venue planning. So this one's interesting. This actually did not take very long at all. Basically, we plugged in the Alibaba Cloud, plugged into the SDK, and they did the work. Once you give them that, oh, here's a server, they know what to do. And really, like in a couple of weeks, they got it done. Industrial control, actually, you actually saw one of the video. Example was a video that was showed by the Japanese delegation. Running 5G and using a mining company, excavation company, think about all the things you can do. You don't want to send people there when there is any hazard. But this really, I personally believe that if there's a B2B, in terms of B2B revenue potential, this is probably one of the best ones you could have. Smart venues. When we started, so we were working with the ASU, Arizona State University Sun Devil Stadium. When they were going through renovation, Intel came in as because we have a large campus in Chandler, Arizona. So we helped them with the planning. We started putting in some of the softwares and putting our ecosystems in. And then lo and behold, you start to really grow from there. When you start doing really simple stuff, HVAC, where the bathrooms are they clean? Do they need to be cleaned up? Very simple stuff, right? Then you start adding in things. We just did one in China. Again, with China Unicom, Mercedes-Benz Arena in Shanghai, where you start putting different angles, volumetric data, taking the videos and then rebroadcast them. Stitching the video together so that the people in the arena can see and pick and choose the angle of the event they want to look at. And then when we brought in Tencent, which is the cloud service provider in China, they start adding a lot of their own content overlay on top because they charge micro channels for people to watch at home. So they can overlay in the Kardashians of China, giving different interpretations of a rap concert, things like that which I would never understand. But this is actually, when you looked at that, you really can parlay that into what if someone sits in a Dallas Cowboys Stadium, you start giving them recommendations what to buy. Wouldn't Jerry Jones love that? He would love it. He makes more money off it because lo and behold, he knows what these people are. Most of them are season ticket holders or some kind of royalty card holders. So you do know your audience. If you know your audience, why couldn't you make recommendations? So all of these are real-time information you need to go through. I don't have much time, so I'm going to go faster. Kinetic Car, we have this set up in San Jose. We start running. Autonomous car needs to be self-contained. Network cannot dictate the safety issue. But a Kinetic Car is a different story. We start modeling using edge compute and doing all the different HD maps, entertainment. When you're not driving, you have a lot of things you can look at. So what are these? This is the one that no one can read. But the bottom line is just what we try to do is do the segments, get the learning, what's important for each vertical segment, security consistently come up as number one. And to be able to separate my data from the operator data, and many times the decision maker becomes a CIO, it's a CIO, it's enterprise. Enterprise is a D, decision maker, and the verticals generally runs security. Security needs most important, and location also comes out to be very important. Like you need to know where the shoppers are in a mall, for example. We see a lot of ecosystem tractions, but this is different. Ecosystem, we started separating out what's enterprise doing, what the SI becomes very important, by the way. A system integrator with 1 foot in the IT, 1 foot in telco is probably the best partner you need to have. So we started investing in SIs, working with them, getting them into our fold, getting them familiar with what we do, how 5G is, and how the 5G parlay into the actual deployment. They become a very important partner of ours, operator, ODMs. The ODM stepping up is asked, can we have a 5G-ready building block? So that's where a lot of the Intel Select solutions coming in, and some of the best-known configuration coming in. Make it simple. Open ecosystems. So now I'm going really fast. So we just launched a Keynote. One of the founders, along with AT&T and China Mobile and so on. Intel is contributing 2 important things. One is a Wind River Titanium stack, and the other one is our NEV SDK. We are open sourcing them. We believe that's the only way for this to grow. You open source the ecosystem and have people contribute, the community contribute the software into it. Everything we've done in the NEV SDK, we're going to contribute that back out, including API, including the Kubernetes work that we've done, the virtual machine that we've done, and all the plugins we've done to the cloud, and we'll be contributing at Keynote. So summary. Yes, commercialization, everything all the experts before me say are true, but the important thing is we really need to focus on monetization. How to build an ecosystem together that we can actually monetize what we build and get paid for it, so everybody can have a nice retirement in Hawaii somewhere. Thank you very much.